Hey everybody, welcome to another week of Behind the Machine. And this episode, we have an exciting episode talking about AV budget. We're talking about money and how we can manipulate it, change it, set it up so that you can get the most bang for your buck without spending the most money possible, which is very easy when it comes on to events in AV. So this week we're here and we're talking to Marissa Distilio, and we're talking about events and money. What's up, Marissa?
Hi, good to be here.
Awesome. So let's get right into it, right? Talking about all the different aspects of it. We've seen all the different levels of what can be done from an AV perspective for events, especially for us being majority of it being nonprofit events and galas. What are some of the straightaway first thing comes to mind, easy first pitfalls that you see people get into when it comes on to places where we can be better at managing those finances and the money with AB?
Yeah, I think that when you're looking at your AV budget for your event, um, knowing where to spend money and where not to spend money is like the biggest avenue. We've talked a lot about audio on this, so that is something I would spend money on versus maybe if the venue has some sort of visual component, maybe you don't spend money on extra screens in certain rooms and you use what they have. But that really depends on your team and making sure they know how to use the stuff that's provided by the venue. That's sort of where I would first start. So, your venue tour, what is provided? What can be done in house by the venue? That will help you cut costs originally. And then what do you need to bring in? And then sort of working with that. So,
Cool, cool. So let's break it up into pieces, if you will, then, right? I think, we've talked about the audio, and that's probably almost one of the things that almost always shouldn't be where we try to save money on when it comes to the venue, because it's just almost, I can't think of ever a situation where it was helpful to use the venue's audio, except for if it was for background music
mhm.
um, um, during a non-program time. But when it comes now to the visual side, I think there's been quite a bit of situations where we could take advantage of the venue's already built-in screens. And some of their other built-in stuff, like I know there's some venues that, and this is something that I think maybe everyone can consider, even when they're talking about booking a venue. Some venues have built-in lighting, decorative lighting, which is one of the things we talked about on the last event podcast, and that can be a great place for people to save money. So let's talk about first, screens. How can we save money with screens? What should we not try to save money on? How it can impact everything, I think needs to be a consideration of how it impacts the audience, the people. So yeah, first talking about screens with your
Yeah.
experience.
So when you're taking your tour of the venue, noticing what screens they have, asking them, do you have any monitors or screens that you can roll into this room that come with the venue? Or if you're noticing, oh, they might have a display of a screen that's like sort of rolling what kind of events that they have. Can we tap into that? Can we use that during our event? Or some venues even have screens that come down from the ceiling that you can access and then seeing a lot of times it's not an additional cost to use the screens there as long as you know how to use them, which is why you end up bringing an AV team in and don't just rely on they work. And that's why you bring an AV person to go on your tour so that they can maybe look at the screens, see what connections they have. Something typical that we use for those screens are HDMIs and HDMI cords. And depending on if you want sound coming out of those monitors, and this is crazy, but some venues, they don't have sound on some of their monitors. Like the sound doesn't work. So they're just a visual. And so that might work for you and it might not work for you. Um, but that's the main thing I'm noticing when I go into those rooms, what screens are in here that I can tap into and which ones, and do they have any that are on the ceiling that can come down or in it from another room? That's the
Cool.
first thing. So, I would
And
ask
then
about.
I would even add, just to make sure too, there's clarity too, and it comes from when we're talking about screens that have sound, we're definitely not talking about the sound for say program. We're talking about sound that might be like for a video that is playing during cocktail, or
Mhm.
you want the sound from that video to play out from it, or that's at the front entrance or by registration, things of that nature. But yeah, definitely those considerations are there. And I love the idea that you mentioned too about we I think there's been quite a bunch of venues where we will use the venue's drop down even projection screen,
Mhm.
but and they have a lot of the time have a projector that the client can use on location, but it's almost a very low end, low scale projector that is not bright and not vibrant for say a big event with a few hundred people. It's really more so for presentations than it is for big events, right?
Yes, I would say that's pretty standard. So if they have a pull down screen or something that comes down from the ceiling for a projection, the projector might not cast enough light for you for a dinner event. It might be more of a daytime kind of use, especially some of these venues are being used for, again, corporate presentations, which is, if that's what you're doing, definitely take advantage of it. But you might be able to use the screen, but then bring in the projector with your AV team, which is still saving cost, which
Yeah,
you not having to set up the screen, you already know the size works in that room because those things are things that your AV team is going to need if you do need things like a projector. Which if we go into that avenue, you might want a projector over doing multiple screens. That's
yeah,
another way to save cost. You might want to not use, the HD monitors because it's an odd shaped room and you just want to do one big projector on one side of the room next to the podium that everyone can see. And it's really big. It's like, I think 16 by 9, 16 feet by 9 feet, which is huge. And
huge.
everyone in the room can see it, which is really lovely. And that could save you costs because sometimes the monitors, if you want 4 monitors in the room, that could be more costly, than just doing a projector, depending on the space.
And it's interesting, and yeah, and we won't even spend too much time on it for all you guys. You could definitely ask us some more questions, or any AV consultant that you can ask. But overall, yeah, there is a really delicate balance between whether we should use large projection screens, whether we should use LED screens. There's other options, also like an LED wall or
Mhm.
an assortment of LED walls. And the best option all comes down to venue, its layout, size of the audience, and vibrance and the whole feel that you want. But overall, that's one of those areas where there are definitely a great assortment of options. So let's switch gears a little bit. Let's
Yeah.
talk about lighting, because I think that's one of the cool ones where, especially very venue dependent. And I've seen some venues where, in some cases, we're coming in there and we don't need to bring any lights except for maybe a spotlight.
Mhm.
Because all of the location is really has a lot of great lighting options. And then there's some venues where the venue's really beautiful, but it's really bland, it's really white, and you gotta bring extra stuff, you gotta do some things to actually jazz it up a little bit. So let's talk about your recommendations and areas of budget there that you can deal with.
Yeah, so transforming a space with lighting is huge because you're taking a general room that is used for a bunch of different functions and making it specific for your event. And you can do that really easily and effectively with lighting. Um, what I urge you to do is when you're on your tour at your venue is have them turn on all the lights. See if you see what we call uplighting, which is it's like a tilted light. You'll see it cast against a wall. So it will be sort of against the wall. You can kind of see it actually in Don Bell's video right now. It's right back there and it's kind of changing colors. It's like cast against a wall. That's what we would call uplighting, and it changes the color of the wall. Sometimes when you're just going through the venue, it might just be a white light. That's what they're showing you. And then you would maybe ask them, is that something that we can change the color of? Venues that I've worked at that do this, Glen Island is one of them. If you go on a tour there, just talking to people here that might be doing events there, that's something that they offer. They have
Mhm.
uplighting all throughout their venue in their ballroom, and you can change the color to suit your organization or company for your event. Also, another thing to look for is spotlights that are sort of pin lights. They're like in the ceiling themselves.
Mhm.
Those can be adjusted as well, and that's something the venue should be able to do for you. So, a lot of times venues will have beautiful chandeliers that kind of go up and down, but next to those, they might have what we call pin spotlights where you can highlight individualized tables at your event or face them towards backgrounds of like your staging, the background sort of stuff. Those don't usually change color, but they do give you the opportunity to highlight different areas of your staging and your tables if you want to highlight like and have people be able to see things visually on the tables. That is something that can effectively change the space, especially if you have really beautiful centerpieces that you want to highlight. That's something that you could use those for. um, but lighting that is definitely key is spotlights. That's something I would definitely bring in. Venues don't typically have really great effective spotlights that are easy to adjust. They usually are just they're on or they're off, and they might be
Mhm.
blinding to those standing on stage. And I would say that's something that you want to bring in. You want to have a professional that's turning it up, turning it down, having it, soft lighting where it's needed to be for those who are standing on stage. If you're having a performance, you might want that to change. Those different things I would bring in a spotlight. That's not where I would save cost, but those other elements, you might be able to see those at the venue where you can save cost.
Nice, nice. And then let's talk about some of the other things, right? So, and you can lead me here where you
Mhm.
think is going to be best suited and the best advice and the most value for those of us, those individuals that are watching. But I'm thinking about some of the other things that sometimes we have to modify or change for our client, or and sometimes it's based on what's venue provided or what's being brought by the client themselves or someone that promised something. So things like staging, podiums,
Mhm.
uh, the backdrops, the pipe and drapes. What are some of the other things that you're seeing, or really just get into any other special tips or advice you have for anyone that wants to get the best bang for their buck, if you will?
Yeah, so I would say a ton of venues have podiums. So ask them, do you have a podium on site? Um, You can dress that podium up. So I would say standardly what I'm seeing at venues is those bigger wooden kind of podiums. And that might not be the vibe that you're going for at your event. So you can dress those up easily with a foam core board that has your logo on it. And that will really dress up the space to match your event. You also could potentially like get an extra uplight to put so there's color on it too. I wouldn't recommend it doing that with the, like, clear plexiglass kind of podium because then the light goes directly into the person who's speaking's face because 'cause they're clear, but you could do that with those wooden ones. Additionally, you could if you have a specific look that you're going for. I would say a lot of our organizations are looking for that clear plexiglass modern look. That's something that we can bring in. Sometimes venues do have those, or they have them to rent direct with them, and it might be more cost effective. It just sort of depends on what you're looking for to make it function the way that you want. Um, that is one element as far as pipe and draping goes. Pipe and drape, usually venues don't have that on hand. They might have a small amount of it for certain things, but I would say that is something that typically is brought in separately. But it can be a really transformative way to use the space and the stage, and another place to put your color and to put uplighting against to have that behind the stage, especially if at your particular location, there's some sort of wall art or the wall is not what you want in all of your photos for
Right.
your event. That is an easy fix to make it more seamless for your photos and for your backdrop for your event. So, stages. A ton of venues have stages on hand because people ask for those regularly. They might not have enough stage for you, but it might subsidize your event to use some of their stage and then bring in some stage, but not all of the stage. So a lot of the stages come in what is called like 6 feet by 8 feet sections, and they might have one of those, which can be great just for like a podium and like one person coming up on stage and speaking. But if you have like a you want a table on the stage that has your awards and you want someone standing there. You might want two of those. So having
Right.
using the one from the venue is great, plus another one from your AV company to add to that can be really helpful. You also might need the stage just for your videographer, and you don't want anything else up there. You want your stage sort of to be on the floor. That's also a good option to elevate your videographer so they're away from your guests and no one is going to trip on the videographer's camera or cords or anything like that because he'll be elevated and completely separate from the main portion of your event. Yeah.
Okay, awesome. And I'll add one more big one. I know this one is huge, and it was especially more huge right after we came out of COVID. And it's not as big of a deal now, but it still is because in almost every event, especially if we're being as efficient as possible with technology, Wi-Fi is super, super important. And unfortunately, that's not always the consideration for every venue you go to. And be remiss if you've already booked and locked in a venue for a date that you'll find out they don't have sufficient internet provisions. So, what are your considerations there, and ways to save money? And I say that because I remember one client who had reached out about us doing some AV, and it was a hybrid event where there was going to be 200 and something people in person, and they expected to have a few thousand people online, but they learned a couple months after booking the venue that the venue really doesn't have any proper provisions for internet at all. And then based on where they were and the area, there was no low cost way to get them internet. I remember we had to get a quote from I forget what it's called. I think they're called broadband trucks or internet trucks that what they literally are coming there just to provide internet for the venue, and it was going to be a few $1,000s. I think it was nearly $10,000 if I recall, if not a little
Wow.
more than that, just to provide
That's
internet for
expensive.
the
Yeah.
venue. And it was just like the client was like, "What?" I was like, "Yeah, this is super important." And so yeah, what are your thoughts there on Wi-Fi and what's your experience?
Yeah. So I have a wide range of experience with Wi-Fi. Sometimes you walk into a venue and they have thought about it. They have taken action and thought about the Wi-Fi in that venue, and they have you on a separate network, and which is amazing. That's really what you want. You want your event to be on a separate network that gets we can get technical. We like to say that you have 100 megabytes up and 100 milliseconds. I can't remember the exact terminology. Maybe
The
you say it,
megabytes,
but
millisecond. Well, we talk about
yeah, it's 100 up and 100 down.
yeah.
That's all you need to know. Again, it's 100
Yeah, there's
up
some
and
other
100
technical
down.
terms. We call the time she's referring to is the ping time. Sometimes
Yes.
you might have high speed, but the ping is really slow. So it almost still acts like the internet is slow, even though the technical speed is high. The ping time is too slow. So it makes everything still take long to respond. Yeah.
And this is very technical, but again, you want good speed. You want to bring someone, you want to test it. First of all, test it on
Well, yeah.
all of your phones. Grab your phone, take it out, type in, speed test on your phone and check the speed and see if you're getting good internet. See if you can even send a text message from there. I mean, those are just easy ways for you to test to see if it's good. Bringing an AV person there that can actually test the internet itself is should be something that you do, especially if you have an element that people are going to be texting, like a text to donate, that you have some sort of element that people need to get on a donation platform to send you funds. If you're even checking people out at the end of the night,
Oh,
you're
yeah.
going to need internet. So it's going to be key. Your preference is a wired connection, Ethernet cables. I know this sounds old school. We all use the Wi-Fi, but like your preference for certain things like checking out systems, you might want to be able to hard connection a laptop that is on site that can take payments because that's going to be the fastest, most reliable source. When I'm doing an event, that's what I'm asking for. If we're sharing a website up on the screen at any portion of the night or a text to donate page, I'm asking for a wired connection to the computer that we are using to show that page because that's going to be reliable. That's going to be hardwired right into their connection, should never lose internet. Um, those are the main things. We could go way deeper in depth, which maybe we should do a part two on Wi-Fi connections and making sure. But there are other resources. Reach out to us. You can purchase different hotspot tools, which I'm sure you've thought of hotspots before, but you don't really want them to be connected to one singular like AT&T network or something like that. You want it to be broadband to be able to use it
Yeah,
with lots of
multiple.
different networks because that
Absolutely.
might not be the network that works in that area for that particular venue. Um, Having someone on site that knows what they're talking about Wi-Fi that works with the venue is also key. So when you schedule your site visit, also ask, can I please have the technician that does your internet or does your, you know, anything on site that works with your audio or your visual elements that are already built into your rooms on site so that I can talk to that person too. That's something I would highly recommend because you want to know that person. They're the ones that are going to unlock the door in order for you to connect into their network. They're the ones that are going to give you access to certain things that maybe they wouldn't typically do for just any event.
Yeah. So absolutely. So I hope all this information that Marissa's given and I've shared here is helpful to all of you watching. Generally, one of the reasons we wanted to do this episode is because we've been doing AV and for events for a long time. And I can't tell you all the conversations then that we've had in private of some of the things that we've seen done, or sometimes when if we're on a project and we're not doing the AV, or if we get brought in to do AV and then they're saying, "Hey, do this. The last company did this," and we're like, "This was the wrong way to do this entirely." And sometimes, the amount of money we're saving the client, they look and then now they're questioning like, um, or can we even do the job? But we're like, yeah, like all this stuff you had on here before was the wrong way to do this, and it's probably why it cost you so much, right? So, it's all those things considered, but also just some things that you need to consider. Sometimes we are thinking of the budget and we're thinking of it really too small of an idea, and we're thinking too on a low scale, and really not realizing that if you're trying to cut everything to bare bones, it actually impacts the audience and how they'll engage and connect with what you're trying to do. So, all those things considered, we hope all this information is helpful. So, with that said, we're going to close this episode off and of Behind the Machine, and we'll see you on the next event episode in 2 weeks. And we'll see you then. Bye, everybody.